Welcome, all my fellow Redskin brethren and sistren. It's news that's nightly about the Redskins. Welcome to the Redskins Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So, I wanted to do something a little different tonight. In the spirit of Thanksgiving, which usually is a time of gathering and fellowship, it also, for me, represents a time of reflection. And there was no greater Thanksgiving moment in terms of a Redskins moment, for me at least. I can't speak for you, but for me, there was no greater Redskin moment on Thanksgiving than the one back in 2012, as Robert Griffin III really staked his claim as the Rookie of the Year, which he would eventually go on to be that season. But more importantly, staked his claim in the Redskins actually making something of what felt like a lost season at the time. Remember, Mike Shanahan made the famous comment after the Redskins went to 3-6 right before their bye week after losing to Carolina in the infamous homecoming game. Said, we're going to start evaluating players for next year. And Robert Griffin III came out and said, no, I'm not thinking about next year, man. I'm thinking about winning this year. And that we did, to the tune of 7 straight. Into the postseason, 10-win team, division winner. Now, there was a long uphill battle and climb to get to 10-6 from 3-6. And the Redskins started that climb after the bye week at home versus Philadelphia. The Eagles were horrible. Remember, the division itself was awful that season. That's why the Redskins even had a shot, okay? The Eagles were bad, and the Redskins smoked them after the bye week. I want to say that score was something like 31-6, 31-10, something like that, 31-7, somewhere in there. Redskins dominated that game thoroughly. And the Redskins would go on to beat the Eagles again later on in that season. If you remember, that was the game 2 weeks after the Robert Griffin III injury versus Baltimore. The Redskins the next week would go and beat Cleveland with Kirk Cousins in the lineup. You know, that sparked a little bit of controversy, and that was probably the beginning of the end of Robert Griffin III in Washington when Kirk Cousins came in and he felt like the offense didn't look the same, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. The following week after that, he came back, probably a little prematurely, but came back and beat the Eagles on essentially one leg. Anyway, back to Thanksgiving 2012. So the Redskins came into that game at 4-6. The Cowboys came into that game at 5-5. It was a must-win game. Every game at that point felt like must win because we were 3-6. And if we were going to dig ourselves out of the hole, we really didn't have a huge margin for error. And as we would find out later in the season, we didn't, because we had to win every single game to get to 10-6, or else we would have lost the division to the Dallas Cowboys, because we played a win and in division title game in week 17 at home, as we all remember, versus the Dallas Cowboys, in a game that the Redskins won in dramatic fashion. Alfred Morris going for 200 yards rushing in that football game. But I remember this game so vividly, this Thanksgiving game, because I'm a Redskins fan, as you all know, but my dad is a massive Cowboys fan, as most of you know as well. And so we always come together as a family during Thanksgiving, and the Cowboys play every Thanksgiving, so that's not new for him. But the Redskins don't play on Thanksgiving every year, and at that time, it had been a while since the Redskins had played on Thanksgiving, and they don't play on Thanksgiving versus any other team, it seems like. At that time, remember, at that time, there was no nightcap to the Thanksgiving doubleheader of games. I think that nightcap started around 2013. It might have been 2011, somewhere in there, when the NFL Network kind of started to get their legs under them. So it might have been already established then. It didn't feel like it. Can you believe that this game 7 years ago, about 4 days prior to this date and time, but 7 years ago, does it feel like 7 years ago? Man, it doesn't feel like 7 years ago. Feels like yesterday. Anyway, the Redskins started out this game, ho-hum, Cowboys, Redskins, 3-0 into the first quarter. And then the Redskins exploded for 28 points in the second quarter. And I remember this so vividly in my head as we're watching this game. Again, Dad is a massive Cowboys fan, and I'm a massive Redskins fan. And the respect that we have for each other in our fandom is so great that we don't talk a lot of trash to each other. It's rare. Now, we do have our moments where we get in our bag and we just start going in on each other. And it's happened many a times. But for the most part, we pretty much keep it civilized. We respect the rivalry for what it is. We respect each other. And we know how heated it can get. You know, there aren't many things in this world that can get me heated. The Redskins is one of those things, okay? And as frivolous as it can be, I can get pretty damn amped about the Redskins. And he can get pretty damn amped about the Cowboys as well. So that's why we tend to stay out of each other's way and don't talk a lot of trash, because those conversations that end up going into trash talking mode generally end poorly. So anyway, you know, we try to keep it civilized, but I couldn't help but go off as that second quarter unfolded. When's the last time the Redskins scored 28 points in a single quarter? 4 touchdowns in one quarter. It probably happened recently. You know, every time I say something like that, and I say, when's the last time that happened? Someone will be like, hey, yeah, that happened 7 games ago. Obviously, that didn't happen this season, but it probably happened sometime in 2017 or 2016 when Kirk was going off, one of those times. But anyway, when's the last time the Redskins scored 28 points in a single quarter? And I remember that first bomb to Aldrick Robinson to get us on the board. And I'm thinking, wow, that was awesome, man. Felt good. You know, but, you know, it didn't feel any different than anything else. I'm just like, cool, we're ahead, you know. And then the next touchdown, and now it's 14-3, and you're like, this feels great, you know. You start to get that little feeling like, wait a minute, we might be onto something here. And then you get the Pierre touchdown, and you're like, whoa, wait a minute. And that was a hell of a throw by Robert, a hell of a catch by Pierre, and then Pierre off to the races. And now it's 21-3, and you're like, oh shit, now I'm starting to run around. You know, I'm not doing victory laps quite yet, but hey, the mouth is flapping now. Robert, you know, we were in the midst of Robert showing that this is legit, like this is who he is. And so, you know, the mouth starts to flapping and the gums are really going at this point. And I'm letting my dad have it now, because you know, that Thanksgiving food that I ate 3 hours previous is starting to wear off, and I'm starting to feel good, man. And then the touchdown, I remember this one more vividly than any of the rest. That Santana Moss tiptoe act on the sidelines right before halftime to make it 28-3 was a thing of beauty. I literally started doing victory laps. I'm talking mega shit. I mean, the type of shit that gets you into fights at this point. And I'm doing victory laps around the recliner that my dad is sitting in. And I know he had to be fuming. But at that point, what could he say? They were down 28-3. They just got embarrassed in their own building in the first half of that game. And it seems like this thing is only going to get worse because they can't stop us on offense. And I remember thinking to myself, if this is what Thanksgiving is supposed to be like when the Redskins play against the Cowboys, sign me up for this every single damn year. And so the Cowboys come out in the second half and they score a touchdown and they make it 28-13. And I'm thinking to myself, man, that ain't nothing. It's just one touchdown. They can't stop us anyway. And sure enough, we go right back down the field and we score another damn touchdown. And it's 35-13. And I look at my dad and I don't say much. I give him the look. I don't say anything, as a matter of fact. I give him the look of, hey, man, you got to deal with this shit here for the next 10 years. That shit being Robert Griffin III. You got to deal with this guy, number 10, for the next 10. Get ready, buckle up. It's going to be a bumpy ride. This is going to be fun. I was thinking long term here. That's how fun this was. I wasn't even in the moment anymore. I was thinking, man, we could be beating up and abusing the Cowboys and everybody else in the division and the rest of the NFL for the next decade. This is going to be great. And then slowly but surely, the Cowboys battle back. And it went from me talking to me less talking as the Cowboys cut into the lead and make it 21 because they go for 2 and they get it to 35-21. Then they score again and it goes from me talking to less talking. And now I'm quiet as a mouse as they cut it to 35-28 with about 8 minutes left in the game, if I'm not mistaken. Somewhere like 8 minutes left. It was a ton of time left. And my dad looked at me, and boy, he was talking that beer that he'd been drinking, because he was self-medicating at 28-3. That beer he was drinking, man, did it start to kick in. God damn, was he giving me work. And I was just taking it. Because at this point now, I'm biting fingernails. I'm nervous. As you know, I'm a preconditioned Redskins fan to think the worst. I always hope for the best, but I expect the worst. And as that lead dwindled down from 35-13 to 35-21 to 35-28, I'm sitting over there thinking, they're going to come back and beat us, man. This is some bullshit. And it reminded me of the Monday Night Miracle. My dad was giving me work that night. I mean, I sat there and took 3 hours and 15 minutes of absolute abuse. If there were another parent there, they could have called CPS on my dad. Child Protective Services to come and get my dad's ass because he was giving me the business. And I sat there like a soldier and I took it that Monday night. And then when we scored that first touchdown, I jumped up, but I didn't say anything because I still thought we were going to lose the damn game. But when we scored that second touchdown and ultimately won that game, I let him have it all the way upstairs. He went upstairs, didn't say a single word, and I let him have it that night and the next 2 days following, okay? So I thought this was a repeat of that, except I was going to be on the wrong end of it. And luckily enough for us, the Redskins put together a great drive, all right? Got a field goal from Kai Forbath, extended the lead out to 38-28. The Cowboys would tack on a field goal, but we would hang on and win the game 38-31 in what was my most exhilarating and memorable Thanksgiving moment in recent memory. And, you know, when I flash back to 2012, that game in particular, and there were so many games that year. Remember the Giants game in the Meadowlands, the game where Robert Griffin III, we ended up losing that football game, but that was the game where I realized, man, this guy, and you know, for some of you, that game came game one versus New Orleans in the Dome, the shock and awe game where he literally goes in there and we put up 40 and he's griffining on the ground as Pierre runs for like a 88-yard touchdown run. For some of you, that was a game where you realize this guy's the truth. For me, it was that Giants game. We're down big. We battle back. He throws the touchdown pass to Santana Moss. I want to say it was Santana Moss late in that game. I'm thinking we're about to win. In typical Redskins fashion, we blow it and give up a pass to Victor Cruz. Victor Cruz! Goddamn Victor Cruz! Damn 75-yard touchdown. Just like that, they take the lead back from us. And it seems like we're about to lose. And Robert takes us down the field. And on a fourth down, he's dipping, he's dodging. He falls down as he's throwing to Logan Paulson to extend a fourth down. And I'm thinking to myself, this guy is incredible. So I already knew. But the rest of the world didn't know until that Thanksgiving game. And we had the Minnesota game that year, the run, the spectacular call by Larry Michael, you know, down the sideline when he jumps into the crowd. There were so many moments in that season. The one thing I always say about Robert, they can never take 2012 away from us. You know what I mean? Like, I always feel like that Above the Rim movie where he talks to Nutso and he's like, they can't take that away from us, Nutso. They can't take it away from us. You know, we were champs. Bernie Mac said we were champs. They can't take it away from us. And I feel like they can't take it away from us, man. 2012 will always stick in my memory bank and will always have a piece of my heart, even though it was short-lived and it was so bad because it gave us hope. Now, I told you the worst thing you can do is give a man hope and then snatch it away. All right? The worst thing you can do is give a man hope and then snatch it away. So we thought that was going to be our life moving forward as Redskins fans. Like, the best was yet to come. 2012 was just the tip of the iceberg, but little did we know that was as good as it was going to get. But man, oh man, I tell you, and that was some really great memories. And you know what? One of the best ones was Thanksgiving. You know, can't believe it's been 7 years since Robert Griffin III invaded Dallas and took over that stadium and slayed the Cowboys on Thanksgiving Day. Man, I will tell you, there hasn't been a greater Thanksgiving for me since 2012 than that one right there. I can't speak for anybody out there, but that's one that I will never, ever forget. So that's our trip down memory lane. Let's get back to some current events in other news. So remember, I've been singing the song all season long, put Steven Sims back on punts, put Steven Sims back on punt. I've been singing that song since the preseason. I said, if this guy's going to make the team, and I didn't think he was going to make the team. Some of you were like, Steven Sims Jr. needs to make this team. And I was like, he's not going to make the team. And he made the team. And once he made the team, and remember, I said after that final preseason game that he needed to make the team. I thought he made the team on that final preseason game. And I said, if he makes this team, he needs to be back on punts and kickoffs. I knew that Jay wouldn't put him back on punts because I told you he had PTSD from Jamison Crowder. So we knew that when Jay was here, Trey was going to stay back there because Trey was shorthanded. But once Jay got canned, I said, look, a lot of changes needed to be made. One, I wanted Dwayne Haskins in the game. And two, I wanted Trey Quinn off of punts and Steven Sims Jr. on them. And so we didn't get either one of those things. All right. Now, we ultimately got Dwayne down the road, but we still haven't gotten Steven Sims back on punts. Now it sounds like that is set to happen. However, we got some clarification as to why Steven Sims hasn't been on punts. And before I give you the rationale, and it makes a lot of sense, let me first rewind a bit and actually apologize to Nate Kazor, our special teams coordinator. Because when Nate Kazor came on board, remember the preseason we had on special teams? I can't speak for any of you out there, but I know a lot of you were on the bandwagon, but I'm just going to speak for myself. I thought that this season, from a special team standpoint, had a chance to be a train wreck. We weren't covering punts well in the preseason. We were giving up big plays left and right. And remember, I was sour about Ben Kotwika going to Atlanta and taking a lateral position and move to the Falcons to become their special teams coordinator and leaving us because since he had come on board, the special teams unit had been pretty damn good. Outside of the one game in Jacksonville where we gave up the punt return for a touchdown, and you could argue that several guys had opportunities to make the tackle and decided to tackle their own players. And so that probably shouldn't have went for a touchdown, but it did. Outside of that, we were outstanding on special teams for the most part. And so I was a little sour about him leaving. But that was the culture, that damn good culture. That's the one that we had cultivated that made coaches want to leave and take lateral positions elsewhere. It's not the first time a coach has wanted to leave here and take a lateral position as a special teams coordinator. Danny Smith did the same thing once upon a time in Pittsburgh, where he left here to go to Pittsburgh, and he's still the Pittsburgh Steelers special teams coordinator. Anyway, I thought that this special teams coordinator in Nate Kazor was going to come in and stink it up. And if special teams play in the preseason was indicative of what was to come in the regular season, we were in trouble. Well, I was wrong. And a lot of people said that preseason special teams isn't any indication of what's to come because a lot of those guys aren't even going to be on the roster, and they were right. Our special teams has been rock solid. We haven't given up anything meaningful this season. And Steven Sims has been a revelation. Had the kick return for a touchdown versus the Giants that was called back due to penalty. And then he had his first kick return of his career for a touchdown goal against the Detroit Lions. Also had a big return earlier in that game that really kind of set the stage for the one that would come later on in the game. So I said all of that to say this. Nate Kazor was asked by a beat reporter, hey, why haven't you guys experimented with Steven Sims back on punts? You know, and it's gained a lot of traction. We've been, as fans, have been talking about Steven Sims back on punts. I know I have since week one. All right, I wanted him back there a long time ago. This is not a secret. But he said, look, we have Trey back there because he's short-handed. We know he's going to field the punt. And there's a comfort in that. He said, Steven Sims hasn't always been the most short-handed back there. And we saw a little bit of that on Sunday when he returned the kick. Remember, the kick return that went for 91 yards and a touchdown, he dropped that, okay? He dropped that first, then picked it up, dusted off, and ran for a 91-yard touchdown. So what they're saying is, hey, on windy days or in certain situations, he's a guy that might drop the football, you know, and you know, we want him back there really bad, but you know what else we don't want? We don't want turnovers. You know what else we do want? All right, we want the ball when it's punted to us. And I much rather have, Trey Quinn back there calling a fair catch or running sideways back and forth and gaining no yards or running backwards 3 yards and getting tackled like he always does. I'd rather have that than have Steven Sims and the thought of him running one back, but also the thought of him muffing a punt. That would drive us insane. And we haven't had to deal with that since Trey Quinn has been back there. Say what you want about Trey Quinn. I've not been pleased with his ability to return punts. I have been pleased, though, with his ability to catch them. He has not dropped a single one, to my recollection. Anyway, so that's the reason Steven Sims hasn't been back on punts. It makes sense, all right? I've seen Steven Sims drop the ball on kickoffs before. That wasn't his first drop. He's dropped it at least 2 other times this season on kickoffs. But it didn't even dawn on me that was the reason why. I knew that they thought Trey Quinn was shorthanded, but I didn't think that Steven Sims wasn't shorthanded. I didn't see anything wrong from him in the preseason. But remember, if you remember very closely, they had the Wilson kid from Duke back there returning punts. It wasn't Trey Quinn, nor was it Steven Sims. And you know what? That guy was slated to make the roster, I think, before he got injured. All right? He was a guy that I don't think any of us were thinking was going to make this football team, but they really liked him. And I saw flashes from him before he got the ankle injury that he could be something on punts. So for whatever it's worth, Steven Sims may get an opportunity. He may not. Nate Kazzer did not sound all that thrilled about potentially putting Steven Sims Jr. back there. Now, the head coach did, Bill Callahan sounded like, I don't have a problem with it, but Nate Kazzer sounded like a guy that was like, nah, we tried it in practice and it was to mixed results. We're good. So we'll see what happens with that, but we got some clarification on that. We needed a little bit of clarity. Sometimes transparency is good, and we needed some transparency there, and we got it, and now we know why Steven Sims hasn't been back there all season long. So I want to jump into some social media maneuvers before we get out of here, and I just want to read one comment. It's funny because I brought to you guys' attention yesterday that there were some Redskins fans that were really giving Dwayne Haskins a pass for his play in the game on Sunday. And I said, you can't be giving him passes on performances like that. Now, again, the end of the game, he was clutch on those final 2 possessions. But everything leading up to that, he was horrible, all right? He was not good. And he missed too many things. And you can't be giving him passes. He's got to hit some of those. You may not hit every single one of them. You'd like him to, but he's got to hit most of those, okay? And so I said that I'm going to have to dig into some of you guys' comments that really are giving him a pass. And one of the fans that knew I was talking about him stepped up and said, okay, I'm guilty. I was probably being a little bit over the top in my praise of Dwayne Haskins, but still love the show, still going to support. But he pretty much was saying, hey, don't rip me. So I'm not. Okay, I'm going to give him a pass. But you know what I am going to do? I'm going to read this comment because I think this comment encapsulates everything that I was going to read, but I think it even takes it a step further because it's so true. And that's how I feel about this fan base right now. And it's really frustrating because I wish we could all just get along, okay? I wish we could all just be on one accord, but nothing is more divisive than a quarterback controversy, whether it be between multiple guys or just one guy that a fan base doesn't wholeheartedly believe in, which is the case here with Dwayne Haskins. Either way, I thought that this comment was perfect for this particular situation that we're going through currently with Dwayne Haskins. And so I want to read it. And it's from Andrew Thompson. And he writes, and it's pretty lengthy. I told you some of you guys write some war and peace type of comments, but I love them. Keep them coming. All right, I read all of them. All right, so Andrew Thompson says, nothing divides a fan base like a QB controversy. He says, I see 3 factions forming about how Skins fans feel about Dwayne. He says, number 1, the Dwayne apologist. They like Dwayne and are happy as hell he was drafted. Some are just natural optimists and want the Skins to win so bad that they need to believe in Haskins. To them, Dwayne is going to be a great franchise QB if everyone will just leave him alone and let him develop. Every problem is someone else's fault but Dwayne's. Bad coaching, bad receivers, bad O-line, bad franchise, Fans and media are hating when he does anything wrong. And inexperience and youth, of course, are also excuses to absolve him of wrongdoing. He then goes on to the number 2 faction in this group. He says, it's the wait and see fans. Some are skeptical about Dwayne. Others are more optimistic, but they all are waiting to make their declarations about the guy. It says the big divide in this group is how long until we know what we have. Answers to that will vary between 8 games and 5 years. Again, very, very true. Go see Marcus Mariota and Jameis Winston if you need clarification on that. And then finally, he says, this is the third group, the never Dwayneers. Okay? He said they either were skeptical of or against the team drafting Dwayne in the first place. Every bad performance just tells them what they already knew. Dwayne is a bust. He says some of them have legit concerns about Haskins, and others just refuse to believe the clowns running the Redskins could ever draft and develop a franchise quarterback. They have seen so many quarterbacks start and fail for the Skins over the years that it has given them an almost supernatural ability to predict failure. Some of these fans gave Dwayne a game or two, but most made up their minds the first preseason game that Dwayne was on his way to becoming another Redskins quarterback disaster. He says, I try my best to be a wait and see guy, which is the number 2 option, which is what I am, because that is the best approach. He says, however, my skeptical side and years of seeing Redskins football makes me think like a never Dwayner sometimes. He says, other times my hope that the team will turn things around makes me think like a Dwayne apologist. Being a Skins fan is so complicated. LOL. So I thought that was the perfect comment to kind of encapsulate all my thoughts about this whole situation, is that there are so many Redskins fans that lie in different factions of the Dwayne Haskins discussion. And there are some of you that just want him to fail so you can be right, or you just don't think he's any good. Look, I told you already, I wasn't a Dwayne Haskins guy coming out of Ohio State. There were several other quarterbacks in this draft that I would have taken ahead of him. Obviously, Kyler Murray was one, but Drew Lock was a guy that I absolutely loved and wanted the Redskins to take. And Jay Gruden himself said that Drew Lock was ready to start day one. He was a guy that could come in and pick up the offense and play week 1, but Dwayne was going to need some time. Jay Gruden said that out of his own mouth. And I agreed with him on that. So I felt like the Redskins got it wrong when they took Dwayne Haskins. But you know what? I said this guy has talent, and he's going to need a little bit of time. But if he's developed correctly, which that's one of the biggest issues I had with the Redskins drafting him, is that I had little to no faith that the Redskins would develop him properly and nurture him the way that he needed to be to get him to play the way that he's probably fully capable of playing in this league and maximizing his talents. But that wasn't going to stop me from rooting for him, because he's a Redskin now. And his success is tied to our success as a team. And the team's success is then tied to us as fans and how successful we are and how much we get to cheer for a good football team. If Dwayne is good, it speeds up the process, and we're able to be in contention for an NFC crown, NFC East divisional crown, and maybe even a Super Bowl down the road. If Dwayne is bad, we have to keep doing this over again, and there's no telling if the Redskins will ever get this thing right. So, you know, I'm still taking a wait-and-see approach. I told you guys patience. That's what I've been preaching. I see flashes from Dwayne, all right? I also see reasons why people would think that he's not going to be any good. I see both ends of the spectrum, but I choose to be in the middle. And I always have advocated that you guys do the same as well. But some of you refuse to do that, and that's fine. I already told you, as a fan, I'm not going to tell you how to root, and I'm not going to tell you how to think. All I can do is continue to push off an agenda, which is patience and give this guy a chance, because his success means success for us as fans. His failure means that we're going to continue to be a bottom-feeding franchise no matter who we draft, okay? We could get Joe Burrow. He could come in here and he could stink. All right? We could get Chase Young and he could be dominant on defense, but we could still have an anemic offense and still lose football games. The quarterback position supersedes any other position in this league. Ask the Philadelphia Eagles. They wish they had Nicholas Foles right now because Carson Wentz, one, can't stay healthy, and two, he's no Nicholas Foles. The quarterback matters. Say what you want. The quarterback position matters. And so we need to get it right. And I'm hoping that we do that with Dwayne Haskins. But I am taking that wait and see approach. And I tell you what, Andrew's comment to me speaks volumes and is spot on as to where we are as fans right now. And all of us fall somewhere in that faction, you know, whether it's 1, 2, or 3. But all of us fall somewhere in there, you know, and I've read the comments. Some of you think Dwayne can't do any wrong and you're apologizing for everything that he does. You're an apologist, and that's fine, all right? Again, I can't tell you how to think. Some of you out there have been Debbie Downers from day one. I'm talking about the first preseason game where he came out and he threw those interceptions and you said he was a bust and you've never looked back, all right? And you refuse to give him an opportunity, and that's fine too. And then there are people like myself and a lot of you who are on the fence. You're straddling that fence. You want to believe, but then there are reasons that you don't, but you're not going to give up on him. And so you're in the middle. You're caught between a rock and a hard place. And that's kind of where I am. And so I refuse. I'm more of an optimist. So I'm going to believe that he's going to turn out really well. But there are reasons for pause and concern. I do admit that. And so we'll see what happens with Dwayne. But for those of you watching this video, please join me at 8 p.m. For an hour-long special where I open the floor to you guys, give you an opportunity to voice your opinion on the Redskins. We open up the phone lines. I give you guys an opportunity, open forum. We'll chop it up one final time. I don't know if I'll be able to get back around to you guys this week on the Redskins Nightly News. Obviously, Wednesday, I'll be busy preparing for Thanksgiving. Thursday is Thanksgiving, so you won't get anything out of me on Thursday for sure. Probably won't get anything out of me on Wednesday. At some point, though, I'll look to double back and get to you guys before the Panthers game to give you a quick preview for the game and my prediction for the game. So I hope to do that at some point, whether that be Friday or Saturday, whenever that opportunity presents itself. I'll try to jump back on, and it may be a 5-minute video just giving you a quick preview of the Panthers game and a score and a prediction. But whatever the case may be, you guys join me tonight, and we can open up the phone lines, read the comments, and have a discussion about this team, where we are, Dwayne, whatever you guys want to talk about. The floor is yours. So join me for that. But that's going to do it for this edition of the Redskins Nightly News. I thank you guys for joining me. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the Louie T Network if you haven't already done so, and also share this video. All right. And again, if you haven't checked out the podcast, what are you waiting for? Louie T Network podcast. A lot of trips down memory lane on this next upcoming episode. If you loved what we just did for that Thanksgiving 2012 flashback, we're going to do much of the same. It won't be Redskins related in particular, but it'll be a flash down memory lane nonetheless. I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. Remember, we're Skins fans, and we got skin in the game. Why? Because we're Skins fans for life. This has been the Redskins Nightly News. I'll see you guys a little bit later on tonight. Have a good one. Take care.
Louie T Network.